Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Samira. I'm the Customer Success Manager here. Thank you and welcome to the second Customer Success webinar. On this webinar, we're going to focus on optimizing your solution. Some of that will include console tips and shortcuts, as well as integration methods you can take advantage of that you might not already be, and also 4 ways of using your desktop notification software that you might not be aware of, and ways to use that, certain use cases and optimal uses of that desktop. I have with me here today my co-presenter, Joe Tuck, who's our sales engineer.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Welcome, Joe, and thank you for being here. So, like I mentioned, what we're going to do is go over 4 ways to use the Alertus desktop notification. Most of you are familiar with using our full screen takeover. We'll go over 3 additional uses of the software as well. We'll talk about some integrations that you might not be taking advantage of, and then a little bit about preset alert variables, which I did a customer success blog post on a month ago. If you had a chance to read it, this will be a little more in depth. If not, we will start from scratch and go through that with you as well. And then after that, we'll take some questions from the audience. So the 4 ways to use the Alertus desktop notification are listed here, and Joe is going to help us by going through them live. The 4 methods are the full screen takeover. Then we also have our scrolling ticker mode. We do have audible alerts available. And then we also have our, sorry about that, here's Sarah. So then we also have our pop-up or our quarter screen mode. And since there was a delay on the screen, I'll just let you guys take a minute and take a look at this. And then we will have Joe log in and he will walk us through some of the functions with these. Joe?
Okay, everyone. We're going to exit out the screen here. And we're going to go into our console. Okay, this is our Alertus console. Before we get into the desktop activations, what I'd like to do is take a moment to do a little bit of review for those of you who are not as familiar with the Alertus console. I'd like to get into an alert message and the 4 different parts of an alert message. I'm going to use our custom activation to showcase that. So the first part of our alert message is going to be the message text itself. You can dynamically post any information here that you want to, or you can use a preset message template. By default, we have a couple that we have in the system itself. So I'm going to add a system test here, and you can add any additional information that you need in the event that you want to create a kind of impromptu message. All right. Second part of an alert message would be the duration. This is the amount of time that the alert will remain persistent on your network. This is very important in the event that if an event is occurring in your organization, your building, or your campus, and someone is not logged into that particular network device at a time, this will remain persistent. So when they log on to their system, they will get that alert. So by default, we have it for 30 minutes. The minimum duration that you can have an alert message is 2 minutes. The maximum is 15 days. The second part of an alert message is the delivery message. So you can set up preset delivery methods, and we can get into that later on, or you can add an alert service. So basically, this is going to be the mode in which we're going to deliver this, whether it's a desktop alert, an alert beacon, third-party integration, right? And we will select. And these are all searchable. So we're just going to do a desktop alert. And the final part, the 4th part, is the grouping. So depending on how in your organization you have grouped, whether it's LDAP, Active Directory, or if you have some manual grouping, that way you can select that as well. So I'm just going to choose our local desktop here. And as you can see with our confirmation page, we can see our message text that we're going to send. We can see our duration, which alert profile that we used, and which devices that we're actually going to connect to.
I also actually wanted to quickly mention, if any of you are not familiar with the grouping methods or how to do that, there is information on that on the wiki, or you can feel free to reach out to me or your account manager to get a little more training on that as well. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, no problem. So we're just going to send a system test, and as you can see on the screen there, this is going to be our traditional full screen desktop takeover. Okay. And with this, the user has the ability to acknowledge. So I'm going to cancel that alert in the system.
So we want to stick with using our full screen takeover in true emergencies where people have to react very quickly. You really need to make sure you're getting their intention. It's something that is impending, such as a tornado nearby, or a bomb threat, or a fire, perhaps, somewhere where you really need someone to stop what they're doing and dismiss them or lock down or whatnot.
Okay. Thanks, Samir. Now we're going to move into our Desktop Premier. Desktop Premier allows the organization to really tailor the messaging for your desktop alert to your organization or to the situation. All right. You can think of Desktop Premier in a very similar fashion as your custom activation, and you can do this kind of in an ad hoc fashion. You can actually go into Configure System, and you can create desktop profiles, which we'll get into in just a moment. Okay, so same with any of our standard alerting methods. We're going to have to choose a message text. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to choose bomb threat. And we have the ability to, again, choose our priority, choose our duration. So the priority, if you're not already aware, first being the highest, we have up to 5 priorities. This is important depending on what your message text is. If in the event that you maybe have some situational awareness that you want to pass on to your organization, like an email outage or some IT information, you could put that somewhat at a lower priority, and maybe a weather event could move that up. And then if you have something where a loss of life requires some sort of messaging, you would move that to your highest priority. The higher priority will take precedence over lower priority messages. And if you're sending multiple priority 1 messages simultaneously, the last one that you send in the system will be the one that's displayed on your organization. So for our full screen, kind of like what you saw before, this is our traditional full screen. But with the Desktop Premier, you have a little bit of a couple of options to kind of define it to maybe you have a maybe in a hospital you have a code blue, or you could customize it. So you have the ability to customize it here with some of the different variables here. You can change your text color, your background color, the border color, the system text color. You can alter your system text, your subject text color, the dismiss button, the dismiss text color, and the dismiss button color. So you would just simply come in and select, and as you can see, a palette opens up and you can choose anything that you would like. All right. So another advantage of the Desktop Premier is you have the ability to add audio or utilize your operating system's text-to-speech functionality. So we can choose text-to-speech. We can choose an audio file. So if you have an audio file saved, you can do that as well. And you have the ability to choose how the alert profile is going to act on lock screen. So by default, it's going to show the same messaging. We can do a couple of different options here. So by default, for the alert service, actually I'm going to step back for a second. As you're doing these, if you would like to save them as an alert desktop profile, you can do that as well as you're going through.
I also wanted to clarify, Joe, at this particular moment, we have the ability to override lock screen, but there still needs to be a user logged in. Is that correct?
That is correct. So the desktop client is currently a user service, so we would need a user to be logged in. If you wanted to add additional alert service to this, you could as well. And finally, we have our which devices we're going to send it to. So again, I'm going to send it to our local desktop here. Oops. Right. And again, this is just going to be similar to what you saw before. So as you saw, I changed the text color. Next, I want to showcase the ticker mode. So all of these are very similar. I'm simply going to choose a different message. And you have the ability, if you want to add a hyperlink, you can simply type that in. More information. Go to go to weather.gov. Again, you can change all of your options here. We're going to choose a scrolling ticker. With the scrolling ticker, you have the option to anchor it at the top, at the bottom, or mini scroll, or customize. So you can also add images into the ticker as well. So if we wanted to add a tornado image, we can do that as well. You can use a web link, or you can upload an image from your computer yourself. Select a message or select an image. I'm going to choose tornado. Going to apply. Okay, and you have the ability to change the color of both the background and the text itself. So again, it opens up a palette, so we can choose any color that we like. Okay. Next, you have some display options. You can choose how big the ticker is going to display on your screen. So by default, we have it small. You can choose larger, or you can choose a fixed length. So I'm going to choose larger for display purposes. You can choose where it's going to anchor. You can choose whether or not the user can move it, whether or not the user can close it, and this reduced opacity, basically, if it's not active, it'll make it kind of a translucent in appearance. As with our other full desktop, we have the ability to add a text-to-speech. And again, we can choose our lock screen behavior. Again, I'm going to choose the local desktop. And we're going to continue.
A tornado warning has been issued. A tornado has been reported nearby. Seek shelter away from doors and windows. Move around if possible. Once safely sheltered, await further instructions. For more information, go to http://weather.gov.
As you can see, that's utilizing the operating system's text-to-speech technology. So as it scrolls by, we are actually going to choose the hyperlink as it comes up.
Once safely sheltered, await further instructions. For more information, go to http://weather.gov.
So there we go. So you can see we can go to that website. And I'm going to acknowledge it. Okay.
So we recommend this use for non-emergencies or non-critical emergencies. It also is very helpful in healthcare situations, hospitals, where there are a lot of desktops with other applications that are important for patient care. So this is a really great way of notifying nurses, doctors, and other personnel of issues, perhaps someone with an urgent medical need. But this is a really good way for corporate or higher education space to use to tell, for example, Joe, you mentioned an email outage, or classes canceled the next day due to weather, just to prevent any sort of desensitization to emergency notifications.
And again, you can custom color code those if you have codes for your emergency: code red, code blue, code pink. So those are also some options. Next, we're going to move up into our pop-up, and we have this is probably our most customizable feature. I'm going to choose an evacuation. Again, same settings. We're going to choose a pop-up, and you have the ability to choose the default, which is actually the lower right-hand side of the screen, small. We can choose a medium, we can choose a large, or we can even actually make this full screen. So here's where we can actually get to customize our message a little bit more. So we have some templates that you can choose from. As you can see, you get kind of a preview in the middle of your screen. We have quite a number of different templates that you can choose from. So I'm going to choose, in this particular one, I'm going to choose an image. So with the display mode variables, you actually have even more customization options here. So when we choose here, what it does is it opens up a palette, and you can choose a palette and choose a color. So as you can see, I just changed my dismiss border here. We have the ability to change the background color. So as I make a selection, we get a preview up here. So I'm actually going to change that back. Go. We have the ability to, for example, if you want to change the verbiage, you can change this to acknowledge, or whatever your organization feels is an appropriate response. So I can change that to acknowledge. We have the ability to change some imaging in here. So we have several preloaded images. As you can see, it changes there. Or if you want to use an image that's on your computer already, since this is an evacuation message, we are going to choose an evacuation map. So as you can see here, gives users a map of the facility and the fastest and safest way to leave. Okay, you can choose the window size, where the screen is positioned. Again, some of the similar options as some of our other ones.
So also, I think what's important to note with the dismiss text is the reason that could be helpful is that you can configure the system to, once it's acknowledged or that button is clicked, that it actually still stays on the screen. If you did want to prevent that user from just continuing to work or ignoring the message, you'll still be able to see that they've acknowledged it, but you can keep that notification on the screen. So it's not necessarily a dismiss button, depending on how you want to use it.
Okay, and now I'm going to go and choose my device. So as you can see here, we have our evacuation route for the user, so they can get an idea of where they're at in the building and proceed appropriately. One more feature that I would like to showcase for the Alertus Desktop Premier is the ability to integrate a URL into the messaging. So we are going to choose we'll choose a weather alert, and I'm going to choose the pop-up again. and I'm going to choose the template for video. So down here you'll see a video URL. This could be any URL that has dynamically hosted information. It could be your organization's home web page where you keep up to date, or it could be some other website that individual needs to get more information. So we'll put weather.gov and formatting. There we go. Make this larger. So the individual actually gets to see the web page displayed, and all of this is actually clickable when they have it displayed on their screen. We actually have the ability to, if there's a video, we can do an autoplay. So if you have a URL that's actually going straight to a video, you can have that automatically start when the alert gets sent. Okay. So same as before. And if someone wants to go to active alerts, they could do that as well. So all that's clickable. All right. Next, you want to move into, Samira, you want to move into the
Preset alerts.
Preset alerts?
Sure, yeah, thanks,
Okay.
Joe. So
Okay.
our preset alert variables are used with automated events such as weather alerts, data feeds, and panic buttons to include event-specific information in the alert without any input from the dispatcher. For example, variables can be used when someone triggers a desktop panic button from their office and you just want to pull in their name, their room number, their building number. Also, you can use preset alert variables with our integrated NOAA weather alerts. So instead of displaying, the really lengthy weather alert from NOAA, you can pick certain information from there to present as an alert, whether internally or outbound to all of your constituents. So Joe is going to walk us through creating a preset alert.
Yeah. So what we'll do here is, actually I want to take this opportunity to show another screen. And what I want to do is I want to show our event dashboard. So the event dashboard is part of the Alertus console that allows the administrator to see all of the messages that are incoming to the Alertus server. But what we're going to use this for specifically is to look at an ad hoc event. So an ad hoc event is the ability to test your system and using a couple of different templates. So we have the ability to create an event for cap alert, for fire panel event, for a lightning event, for panic button activation, simple incoming message like an email, and different syndication feeds like admin RSS. So as Samira was referring to earlier, just a minute ago, we're going to choose a panic button alert. So this gives you an indication of all of the XML headers that the Alertus server would see for a panic button event. So as you can see, we have the different users, client name, computer name, different variables, device ID, the actual active, the alert desktop naming convention that gets put into the system. So you can use these different XML headers to create your preset variables. So if I were to go back to my tab here, I can go to my preset variables and I can choose different events. So if I wanted to choose a panic button activation, and I wanted to dynamically input the device name, so I could say, insert that and say a panic button at, and this would dynamically host our device name that we would see here. So this would be my desktop name. And you can put a system time. So if we wanted to put receive time, so that would all marry up with what we have here. So in this particular one, I want to actually showcase a cap alert. So I'm going to choose a severe thunderstorm warning. As you can see, all of these different XML headers for identifier, for sender, and actually gets down into the messaging itself. So what we're going to do is, for this particular preset, I'm going to basically display the description. So this becomes part of my, actually we'll do the headline. So I will erase this. And for my preset variable for cap, I'm going to choose headline. So now, whenever you have in your threat watcher, if you have an event happen, it's basically this is going to choose the headline. So I'm going to call this demo severe thunderstorm warning. Okay. I am going to use the alert service of my desktop, and I'm going to send it to our demo display here. Okay. So we have all parts of our message. So this is our message text, our duration. We have our delivery method, and we have the recipients. So I'm going to add that preset alert. All right. So now that we have this preset alert, we have to basically tell the Alertus server what is going to be our trigger to send that preset alert. So what we would do is we would go to our custom event triggers. We would add a custom event trigger. So this is a very powerful tool within the Alertus server. We have our name that we're going to call our trigger. So I'm going to call it my demo thunderstorm warning. Okay. We need to ensure that it's enabled. So you can create custom event triggers in advance and not have them enabled. We can stop processing. Essentially what happens is once this alert occurs, it's going to not look for this trigger until the next event. We're going to choose cap alert. And from here, we have all the different fields. So for the different event sources that we choose, it changes the fields that we have to search from, just like we do on our preset variables. So as you can see, for cap alert, we have those alerts. For fire panel events, it's going to be XML headers that are specific to that. And same thing for lightning event, panic button activation. So like for our example, we're choosing a cap alert. If we go back to our XML, we see that it's a headline. So we can choose headline. So here it is. As you can see, we highlight some of the more commonly used XML headers. For the operator, these are just logical statements, so we can say whether or not it contains, does not contain, equals, or starts with. So in this particular case, I'm going to say contains, and I'm going to choose severe thunderstorm warning. Okay. We can add more logic to it. So if I wanted to ensure that only the sender came from NOAA.gov, I can choose a sender. Okay. And you can add more logical statements as you want. Now, by default, these are all logical ANDed. If I wanted to change these to or, we could do that as well. Or we could have, we could have IDs 1 and 2 and add an additional. Maybe we wanted or and number 3. So that's all configurable. So now that we've told the system what we're on the lookout for, we need to tell the server what to do once it receives that information. So we can send a preset alert, and we can choose our demo thunderstorm warning. I'm going to remove one of these. Apologize for that. We're just going to change this to the sender equals get rid of that. Okay. There we go. All right, so now that we have all of those things in place, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an ad hoc event. And I'm actually going to send this to the system. So as you can see, what it's doing is it's taking that information that we set in the preset variable, and it's filling in our messaging here. Okay. So those are just a couple of options that you can have for preset variables. From here, we could get into integrations. Yep.
Yeah, we're going to talk just a little bit about integrations. We can actually go very in-depth into all of the integrations you can have with your MNS providers, or I'm sorry, your personal notification system providers, as well as your other systems that you might be using. So what I'd like to do is just very, very quickly talk to you about some of the integrations that we offer that you might not be taking advantage of. We will be having a longer webinar that's dedicated specifically to your integrations with MNS systems, for example, Rave, Regroup, E2 Campus, Everbridge, SendWord Now, Blackboard Connect, and the different ways that we do integrate with them, whether it's API or CAP, and how that would look. A lot of our customers prefer to utilize their personal notification system console rather than the Alertus console. We have two-way integrations with almost all of these vendors, so there is plenty of training and documentation within the support portal about these integrations. If you're not already taking advantage of this integration, I would highly recommend it, as it will help you get that single point of activation and cut down on any time necessary to send an emergency message to your designated recipients. I also wanted to quickly mention some of the other integrations that are available to you. Frequently, we have customers that already have a lot of different pieces of the puzzle, but what they do not have is the Alertus system tying them all together. So just note that if you do have Alertus, you have a lot of extra functionality in terms of tying your other notification systems together, or even systems that you're not currently using for emergency notification can be utilized. If you have VoIP systems, Cisco, Avaya, we do a software integration with them. We also can do hardware integrations with other phone systems. We can integrate with your fire alarm control panel, inbound and outbound, meaning we can take advantage of the speaker system on that fire alarm panel, and we can also trigger the Alertus system from fire alarm events that are triggered, like fire alarm pulled or something like that. We also integrate with outdoor sirens, Whalen, Federal Signal, American Signal, a lot of others like that, and indoor PA systems. So this is really beneficial for hospitals, conference rooms, big convention centers, colleges, places like that that already have a PA system that is being utilized for other purposes that are non-emergency purposes. There are some simple solutions to be able to integrate with that to take advantage of what you already have in place. Joe mentioned quickly the Threat Watcher. Did you want to talk a little bit about how Threat Watcher works? I'm not sure if that's something that, just in case anybody's unaware of what that means.
Sure. Threat Watcher is something that we enable into our Alertus middleware that allows the Alertus server to monitor different feeds, whether they be CAP feeds, iPaws. We have the ability to, as we mentioned earlier, to monitor a simple incoming message from an IMAP or IMAP-S email address, so that if you have some sort of system that maybe is being used to monitor something else that generates email, we can do that as well. So a lot of that's very configurable, especially for some of the weather events. You can create and add locations. You can use the weather services, different codes, so that you can monitor weather events in those certain areas. If you're a large organization and you want to add a lot of different geographic locations for situational awareness, you can do that as well. And using those custom event triggers, you can really tailor your message to create messaging for maybe someone needs to take immediate action right now in a certain location, but maybe another location just simply needs situational awareness. So you have all of that flexibility to do that.
Thank you, Joe. To add a little bit more about the personal notification systems, what I wanted to mention is that we have such a great integration with them that you can log into any of those systems and activate Alertus only. So you could log into Rave and configure your system so you're only sending to Alertus endpoints, such as your Alertus desktops or your alert beacons. And the same goes for the opposite direction. So if you wanted to use, for example, the Alertus mobile app to be configured to send out the Rave text and emails and messages that you send, you could do that. So just keep in mind, if you're only using it for one or the other, you do have the ability, even on the mobile capability, to integrate those two for those that have perhaps the Rave app that they're using or the Regroup app. You can do the same from the Alertus app without losing any of the recipients that you want to reach. Also, for the VoIP phone technology, I did want to mention that for our Cisco integration, you actually have the ability to activate the system from the phone itself based on, is it 3-digit code or some combination of keys that would be designated to do a lockdown message, for example.
That's correct. You have the ability to create a certain extension that you want to dial to initiate a preset alert in the Alertus server, and also the ability to create a PIN for verification purposes in the event that number was dialed accidentally.
Thanks, Joe. So that is actually pretty much it for this particular webinar. I'll take any questions if you have any. We dedicated some of this time to Q&A. It actually doesn't look like we have questions at this time, so that's completely fine. We're always happy to answer them afterward as well. This webinar is recorded. If you wanted to rewatch it or share it with anybody, it will be up on the website. And I am always here as a customer success manager to answer any questions that you have. If there's something that I can answer, I will. If not, I'll pass it on to account manager if you have any additional questions for them. Other than that, Joe, thank you very much for being here today. And everybody, thank you for joining me on my second webinar, and I hope to see you next time.